In this video, you'll learn how to play Nintendo DS games on both the Miyoo Mini and the Miyoo Mini Plus. And all the credit here goes out to the amazing Steward Fu and the Onion OS team. Nintendo DS support is still in the alpha stages, so expect some bugginess and potential compatibility issues as well. I should also mention that with Nintendo DS we're pushing the very upper limit of what this device can potentially achieve. And so you should expect that all games will require frame skip, most games will run slowly, and especially the audio will be stuttery at best, and require disabling at worst. And personally, I wouldn't expect any more performance gains in future, because this is already running at a 16 MHz overclock. Of course I hope I'm wrong about that, and that there are some optimizations or improvements that come in the future. Also, we have to remember that we're dealing with a small touchless screen, which will limit the types of games we're able to play. What I'm saying here is that Nintendo DS on the Miyoo Mini is a really cool novelty, but it's definitely not an ideal way to play these games, and you shouldn't be disappointed if something isn't very playable. All that said though, we have Nintendo DS running on the Miyoo Mini. How incredible is that? One last note here is that this is rapidly evolving, and new versions and changes might be made to this process pretty quickly. I don't expect anything to radically change, but if it does, I'll try and keep up to date with it in the description box below. And I'll also try and make sure that the download link is up to date as well. With all that said, setting up Nintendo DS on the Miyoo Mini is easy. Anybody can do it. To start with, you need to be on Onion OS 4.0 or higher. Click the link in the description box below, which will download a zip archive containing the Drastic Emulator for the Miyoo Mini or Miyoo Mini Plus. Extract the Drastic folder from inside, and copy it onto your Miyoo Mini SD card's EMU folder. Go back to the root of your SD card and go into ROMs. Create a new folder named NDS, all in uppercase, and then simply drag your games in .nds or .zip format into the folder. And that's it! Reboot your Miyoo Mini or Miyoo Mini Plus, go into games, and a new Drastic system will appear. Once you're in game, the controls are laid out exactly like you would expect them to be on Nintendo DS. To change screen layouts, you can press the R2 button to switch between which screen is the larger one, or you can press start and select at the same time to enter the vertical orientation. If you'd prefer to play with just a single screen, press the menu button to open the Drastic menu, go to options and change screen orientation to single. In single mode, you can use R2 to flip between the screens, or press start and select to scale the display down. You might notice these overlays, which I'm personally not a huge fan of, and I'd prefer for them to just be black. Thankfully, they're easy to either get rid of or edit. I'm going to make a new folder in the EMU Drastic folder called, I don't know, Overlay Backup, and then I'll drag these 4 PNG files in there. Since they're not in the main Drastic folder anymore, they're not going to show up in the emulator, and they'll just be completely black. You could just delete them altogether, or you could even edit them to look however you want. You are the Claude Monet of your Drastic overlay. Anyway, in-game you can press L2 to bring up an on-screen stylus. With the stylus on screen, press A to tap, and L2 to disable it. Note that you cannot change the screen mode with R2 if you're in stylus mode. And there's a few more things to be aware of with this emulator as well. From the main menu, you can press left and right on the load state or save state options to change the selected save state slot. By going into configure firmware, you can change your Nintendo DS's name, your favorite color, birthday, etc. And some of those settings may be used in certain games. And then of course you can go into configure cheats to mess with some cheats. That's right, this emulator actually includes a big cheat database already. And if you're running a supported game that has cheats, you can go into this menu and simply press A on the cheat that you want to enable. You might need to restart the game in some cases for the cheat to take effect. And of course remember that cheats are kind of finicky to get working properly, and sometimes they can cause instability. Finally, if we go into change options, we'll see frame skip type, and you can change this between none, manual, and automatic. Now barely any Nintendo DS games, if any of them at all, will run at full speed on the Miyoo Mini, so frame skip is probably going to be required. By leaving it on automatic, you'll let the emulator decide how many frames to skip and when, depending on what the demand is. But if you want to tweak this yourself, you can set it to manual and then set the frame skip value. This value is how many frames will be skipped before the next one is rendered. Setting this to a higher value will allow heavier games to run better, but you'll be skipping more frames, so they'll probably start to look worse. And setting it to a lower value will make it render more frames, and closer to the speed that the game is supposed to run at. However, of course we're running on extremely limited hardware, so if you disable frame skip, the device itself isn't going to be able to keep up and you'll get slowdown. So really it's a balancing act between actual lag and slowdown and how many skipped frames you're willing to deal with. If you're playing a game and getting uneven speed, such as it slowing down and speeding up often, Setting a frame skip to manual might smooth out the experience for you, so you can just tinker around with this setting and see what works for the game that you're playing. I was playing Meteos and it seemed to slow down ever so often, so I changed it from automatic to a manual frame skip of 1 frame and it smoothed out the experience greatly. You can also enable show speed if you're interested in seeing the current frame rate and game speed, and then you can also turn sound on and off. In my experience, the vast majority of games have really stuttery sound that isn't very enjoyable at all. So if you prefer, you can go ahead and disable sound entirely, which is a shame but sometimes necessary. And sometimes disabling sound can also give you slightly better performance too. Also, if you have an enabled cheat that's ruining your game, you can disable cheats altogether from this menu. If you make any changes here, you can scroll down to the bottom and choose Save for all games to do just that, or Save for this individual game. And if you want to delete that configuration, the option's down here as well. And well, that about covers Nintendo DS gaming on the Miyoo Mini and Miyoo Mini Plus. If you have any further questions about this process, do let me know in the comment box below. And if you're watching this and you notice that something's not working or it's out of date, please let me know as well. Of course, with video tutorials, it's harder to keep things up to date, especially when they're moving rapidly. And that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comment box below, like the video, share the video, and also subscribe to RetroBreeze for more content just like this. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.